with the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Draft Show. We are back again with our top 10s today. We are covering the running back class for 2026. Adam, we've done our quarterbacks. We're on to running backs. It's not the class that we had last year, but there is a blue chip in here. How do you feel overall about the running back class in total?
I think there's some starters in here. I'm not going to be as rude to say as that there isn't any, because I think that obviously, as you say, there is the one blue chip guy, but I do feel like there are some starters here as well. But it is a bit, you might find this becomes a bit of a common theme in this one. It kind of just like feels a little bit like it's a bit not as good as what we've had in previous years, which is a shame. But sometimes you just get years where it's like this, and I think that certainly for the running backs, we've had some really amazing players come out in these last few years, like Bijan Robinsons and Jahmyr Gibbs and guys like that. And if you can get, say, like a couple of them in 1 year, then you've got a pretty good running back class. Unfortunately, you've got the one guy, but then there's quite a big drop off from him, I think, and then it's a few starters, but not too bad. So okay-ish, I suppose, is probably the nice way of putting it.
The good thing we've got going for this class is there might be some guys that do emerge in the NFL just for the sheer fact that a lot of it's becoming committee backfields now in the NFL. And I think a lot of these guys are probably committee guys as well that might fit into a system. And if they land at the right team, they might shine through. So well worth going for a top 10, I think. So we'll jump right in and see who we've got at number 10. Well, I have got one guy to shout out before going to my top 10. I did say I'd give him some props, a little honorable mention, and that is Adam Randall, who hasn't made the list. He's a former wide receiver. He's 6'3". He's 232 pounds. Obviously, can catch the ball as elite and run routes as well as all the wide receivers. So a guy that's 6'3", 230 pound back out of the backfield that can catch. I think he might be interesting to keep an eye on. Might be used more in special teams, but I'll keep an eye on him where he goes in the draft, because if there's some buzz about him, he could be interesting.
I mean, that's basically Derrick Henry, isn't it?
Well, I think he's
as in height and weight. I mean, is that not kind of what that is?
But can catch the ball and knows how to run routes correctly.
So it could be interesting, like you say, to see where he ends up going.
But we'll get into our top 10. There's a guy that hasn't made the list as well. I think you wanted to give him a little shout out, didn't you?
Who was that?
That is Seth McGowan. Hasn't made the list. He's not made my list. Who obviously was really, really good at combine. The red flags for me, there's just far too many of them for him to go in my top 10. So that's why I've left him off. The talent is there, and if he grows up a bit and when he moves into the NFL, there's no trouble. I think, there is some talent there with him, but that's why I've left him off the list.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like the people in Kentucky were very happy with him and were sort of coming out and saying that he had kind of sorted himself out a little bit. But, obviously there's been a lot of problems in the past. He was invited to the Senior Bowl. I mean, he's 6'1", 215 pounds. So he's about the right size to be a decent running back. And like you say, if he sorts himself out, then maybe they can get somewhere. But it's going to be a case of whether anyone is going to want to take the risk on him, I suppose. He's going to be a very late round pick, I think, because of that.
Yeah. Depending on how his interviews go, might go undrafted. First up, number 10 is Jamari Taylor from Virginia Cavaliers. His breakout year was 2024, in which he managed to transfer after that good take to Virginia, and then was the first team all ACC. He's 23 years old, so he's on the older side of some of these running backs. 5'10", 199 pounds. He had 1,062 yards, 14 touchdowns, 553 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. Adam, I was struggling with my top 10 slightly. I left a space for you to pick someone we both decided that this was the guy to make the list. What you got on him?
Yeah, I actually think he's not too bad. I mean, I don't have him down as being something amazing. His positives are very much. I think his contact balance is great. He definitely doesn't have an issue with that. Has brilliant vision and footwork. So it's like you can see that he's definitely got the ability to be a decent running back and can do well with a lot of things. He is willing to, when it comes to pass protection, he gives it a go. It's not his strength because of his size, but he is willing to have a go at it. And what I really like about him is I just think he's a bit of for his size, he's quite a gritty runner. It's like he is strong, he is well built. He's just the overall problem with him is that he is just a little bit small, and that's obviously going to be an issue. So, you know, he is an average size. When it comes to pass protection, like I said, he gives it a go, but he does struggle sometimes against the bigger guys. I feel like one sort of like big issue with him is that he kind of lacks long speed. And that's something where if you're not going to have the size, you kind of have to make up for it in the speed, and he doesn't quite do that with long speed, so that's a problem. And then there's just been too many drops in the receiving game. It kind of feels like that's what he needs to get that sorted out. He needs to improve at that, because obviously, like, you know, if you're kind of deficient in one area, you need to be very good in the other in order to get anywhere. I kind of see him as a third down back. I don't really see him as anything else. Maybe in time he could work his way up to be part of a committee, but I just feel like the size is going to be his biggest problem. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Jerome Ford, like a little bit. I mean, a bit smaller than Ford, but kind of that sort of third down back comes in at the end to try and do something a bit different. But yeah, he's all right. But he's, like I say, there's some big limitations for him, I think.
Yeah, I think size limitations and long speed. With the thing that we're saying, I agree with you that he's going to be a third down back. I think when that's going to translate in the NFL, and obviously he's got those drops, so that's going to sort of push him down a little bit. Because if you're a third down back, you want someone that's probably a little bit more secure and catches everything that comes their way. So. Yeah, it's a really nice back. I think he's got a place, but again, I think it's a committee, and I think it's third down. So you're not going to take him too high in the draft, are you? What's your projection of? Do you think he'll get drafted? Do you think he's day 3? What? Not that high.
I think that all the guys that we're going to talk about are probably going to get drafted. I just feel like that a lot of these guys are going to be sort of day 3 punts is what you're going to end up with, and so I can see someone like Taylor going quite late in day 3. I don't think there's going to be too much sort of, you know, desperation to take him much earlier than that. So yeah, I mean, I could see him being like a 6th, 7th round pick. It feels very much just in general about the whole class. You've got one guy who's probably most likely going to go in round 1. You got a couple of guys who you could argue are going to be like day 2 picks, and then after that, it feels like it is kind of a lot of it's going to be day 3. So I'd be surprised if he went. I think he'll be pretty late on Saturday night. Let's put it that way.
Well, we'll move on to number 9, which is Mike Washington Jr. from the Arkansas Razorbacks. He's 22 years old, 6'1", 223 pounds. He had 1,070 yards, 8 touchdowns, and also had 226 receiving yards and a further touchdown. He did play linebacker in high school. He started his college career at Buffalo. Then he moved to Mexico State, and then finally settled with the Arizona Razorbacks. Was probably on a lot of people's radars after the Senior Bowl. There is a lot of people saying he was the best and the most standout guy from the Senior Bowl. And then again from the Combine, he also put up some really, really good stats. I know his 40 was 4.33. So immediately, that's one of those things where people sort of look up and go, hang on, let's go back and look at the tape on this guy. There is a lot to like about him. 34-inch arms as well. Absolutely fantastic. Adam, do you think I've got this guy too low on my list? I know a lot of people have got a lot higher.
Yeah, I was really surprised when you told me that you had him as 9. I don't really rank him or anything like that, but I like what I see from him. And when we were, or when I started doing the notes on the running backs, it to me it was, I mean, it was before the Senior Bowl, it was before the combine, and you could just see from the tape, I thought that he looked like he had a real good sort of size and strength to him. It's like he's got that body that's going to really sort of like cause a lot of trouble. Really long strides, as you say. The arm length is great. Goes through contact really, really well. Yards after contact is solid. It's not too bad. I like his footwork. I think his footwork is decent. He can change direction pretty well. I think he's got quite a high IQ, which is something that not all of these guys do have. I think he understands when he needs to be that sort of like the big bruiser, Derrick Henry type running back, but he also has the ability to understand when that's not needed, and he has that burst where he can sort of like adapt. His biggest problem is his consistency was lacking. It's like he'd have some really big games and then he would disappear in games, which was a big problem. I think he could improve his flexibility. I think that's something. I mean, when you think of like, I know, you say Derrick Henry, and obviously there's not many people like him, but you just sort of think the guy of that size who has that ability to move into gaps so quickly, that's one thing that Washington does lack. So I feel like the flexibility can improve. A few more cuts, a few more hop steps, and get through them gaps a bit quicker. And then one big problem, obviously, in the last 2 years that he's played in college, 7 fumbles. So that's a bit of a concern as well, because obviously, like, you can't have that going into the NFL. So he needs to get his grip on the ball a little bit better. But overall, I think he's kind of got that size and strength and weight about him that really feels like he can make an impact here. And in time, he might be able to become not necessarily something special, but I feel like he's definitely got that ability to maybe become a starter in time. Maybe not through all 3 downs, but certainly like a decent starter. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Braylon Allen. I kind of felt that about him. Maybe Brian Robinson, you could argue him as well, but that sort of guy where I think he could have a little bit of an impact as a starting running back if everything goes well for him and he ends up at the right team.
Yeah, he's definitely got some big playability. He did lead the SEC in 20-yard plays. But those fumbles do really, really stand out massively. And his pass protection is a weak point for him, which I think,
especially for his size.
Yeah.
He could be much better.
Those sort of things need to translate into the NFL. You can have a great college career, but if you don't meet some of the fundamentals of being an NFL running back, I think that's why I pushed him a little bit lower. He reminded me, he's a little bit taller, but he reminded me a bit more of a Kamani Vidal, who you were quite high on again. That's another guy that you were really, really high on. I know he's had a really good season last year, but he's struggled to make the leap from college to NFL, and I do worry that might happen with Mike Washington. But the upside is definitely there with everything he's done in the off season is pointing in an upward trajectory as well, as long with the tape. So there's no reason why this guy can't be higher in the NFL boards. But I just had some question marks on him that sort of pushed him a little bit lower on my board. In at number 8 is Damon Claiborne from Wake Forest, 22 years old, 5'10", 188 pounds. He had 907 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, and 140 receiving yards. No receiving touchdowns. He's a former 4-star recruit. He's a track and field guy. He ran 100 meters and 200 meters. He is an absolute elite kick returner. So I think that is something that's going to play into NFL teams' decisions when it comes to the draft. Played 12 games last season and played virtually all of them with injury. Had shoulder injury, had injury to his ribs. He also had a knee injury, but he played for all of them. Also, another guy that showed up at the combine with some really good speed with a 4.37 in the 40. Yeah, don't think this guy's a bell cow back, but think he's got a place in the NFL for me. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, it kind of feels a little bit similar to Jamari Taylor in a way, just a slightly more explosive version of him, where he has nice burst and speed. His lateral agility is really, really good. He's got the vision to be able to burst through them gaps. He's a patient runner. It's not all about speed. He is patient as well, and he does that well. And actually, for a smaller guy, he does actually have some pretty decent contact balance as well, which I thought was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting. As you say, really good special teams player. Always looking to make plays, and he's a sort of like a kind of like a bit of a. It's a bit harsh to say he's just a gadget player because he's not, but he kind of has that about him where it's like he can do something special at speed. Really nice footwork as well to do that. Look, again, the biggest problem with this guy is going to be his size. It's like, how is he going to be able to compete in the NFL against these bigger guys when he's only such the weight that he is? So, you've got size limitations. His pass protection, I think his technique is not particularly great. That needs sorting out. But again, he's a smaller guy, so it's going to be difficult. I think he's got something about him. He's definitely got the ability to be something in the NFL. But again, it's a little bit like what we were saying about the other, certainly about Taylor. It kind of feels like it's a third down back type guy. Like you say, he's been involved in special teams, so he can do that as well. I don't see him ever becoming the main guy for a team. I think that's unlikely to happen. Again, I feel like Jerome Ford, a smaller Jerome Ford, is another one. Kind of maybe like a small Bashal Tutin as well. It kind of feels like he's got that about him where he's just got that quick speed. I would argue that he's probably going to be pretty late day 3 again. I think he'll be quite late on Saturday night again for the draft, and he has his place. I just don't think that you're going to get much from him really when it comes to sort of being a traditional running back, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll move on to my number 7, which is Le'Veon Moss. I'm probably the only person who's got this guy in a top 10 of their running backs. I think he's outside the top 10 on most people's lists. But I had him on my list last year, and we know how strong the running back class was last year. And I think that's something to take away from it. Watch all the tape of all the guys. Because for me, Le'Veon Moss, Texas A&M, 23 years old. So again, another on the older side, 5'11", 203 pounds. Only 404 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns, mainly because of the injury. And it's the injury that he sustained in 2024, which is the tape that I really, really liked. I think he was the best running back in the SEC before the injury happened in 2024. And that's what made me so excited about him potentially coming into the league last year. And I just don't think he's got back up to that ability because his injury let 2 other running backs come in and play for Texas A&M, and they had really good years as well. So I think they used a bit of a rotation system there, which didn't lean everything on Moss. So I'm taking the 2024 season and saying he can get back to that because I feel he's an explosive, violent runner, and his footwork is great. And I cannot get track speed, all of that. I think he fits the NFL for me.
Yeah, so the first bit that I had down for Moss is that he explodes through lanes violently. That's kind of like, I'll tell you a lot more, but you don't really need to know anything more than that. That's kind of what he is, sort of thing. I think he's got really good footwork. I think he can get through tight gaps really well, and has that sort of hip flexibility about him where he does well. Because of the violent style of his running, he does wear down defenders quite well, and that's something that you see through if you watch game tape, like you say, very much in 2024. You see that happening quite a lot, and the defenders just getting tired from the constant pummeling that they're getting from Moss. I think that He has a really nice stiff arm. I think he does that incredibly well. Has good leg power. He creates leverage really well, and he can sit. He sees everything. He's got the vision to be able to do everything. So there's a lot of positive things when it comes to Moss. As you say, not really much because of injuries and just not really doing much in 2025. The pass protection is atrocious at the best of times, which, considering he's not massive, but he is kind of like, he is slightly bigger than some of the other guys that we've spoken about. It's really, really poor, and that needs to really get going a bit better. He's not much of a receiving back. Like you don't see a lot of that, and maybe that's just because he hasn't been asked to. I don't know, but there's not a lot there. And his running style can be a bit upright at times. That needs to sort of like, sometimes that needs to change a bit, because he does lose a bit of power when he does that. So you sort of saw that on the tape as well. But overall, I think if you do like what you're saying and you take the 2024 tape and you look at him, he's a decent running back that could do really, really well in the NFL. I'd probably personally have him below Washington. Is probably what I would do, but I think it's. I know what you're saying, because not many people have him in a top 10 for the running backs this year. It's not really. It's almost like he's been forgotten a little bit, and that's kind of the issue there. But I think he's all right. I think he's a day 3 guy. I think that he could potentially become something, but I wouldn't be overly surprised. He's really got to sort his pass protection out. That's a huge thing, because teams just won't put him out on the field if he doesn't.
Especially with him probably being an early down back, you're going to use him.
Yeah.
Like say, wearing people out, using him as an early down back. The productivity is there, 765 yards, 10 touchdowns. So he can get in the end zone as well. That's in a short sample size from 2024 as well, with the injury. So I just think the way he plays, for me, fits the NFL slightly better. And I really, really like that about him. We'll move on to number 6, where I have Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, 22 years old, 5'10", 202 pounds, 1,451 yards, 12 touchdowns, 370 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns there. Only became a full-time starter in 2025, in which he then became first-team Big Ten player. Adam, I'll let you take it away with this guy. A lot to like about this guy. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I really like him. And actually, I'll tell you who he reminds me of before we get into it. He reminds me of Ray Davis. And I liked Ray Davis when he was at Kentucky. And this guy kind of reminds me of him. He's someone who's had a lot of, he's had over 1,000 snaps in 2 years, in 24 and 25 for this team. Missed tackle, but he misses tackles really, really well. Doesn't fumble. Very reliable with the ball. Decent in the passing game. Like the footwork, like the vision. I think this guy is a 3-down player. I think that he's definitely someone who could be around and do well. And he has lots of moves. He kind of reminds me, he's got these jukes, he's got these spin moves, which are all really, really good. And I think he can fit in quite a lot of different schemes. I think he has that versatility about him where he's going to be able to do something. His contact balance is good. There's so many positives about this guy. Again, the poor pass protection is going to be an issue. And I think he could get bigger. I think maybe once he gets into the NFL and they can put a bit of weight on him, I think he could get bigger, and he would keep him. He would still be pretty decent. But yeah, he's got a lot of good things going for him, and really like the fact that to me, it feels like he's done the snaps. He's got the experience. He has the vision. He has the footwork. He has the speed. He has the power, despite the fact that he's not the biggest guy. And I just think that if you put a bit more weight on him, I think that he could become something quite special. So yeah, I would probably have this guy a little bit higher myself, but I think that he's definitely got something about him.
Yeah, I think the tape is absolutely great to watch. It's really, really fun guy to watch. I just, again, my worry with him is, and the negative is, does it work in the NFL? Because I think everything, you're nitpicking with him in terms of when you do put the tape on of why he won't work. And it's just whether it translates, as you said, 5'10", 202 pounds. That's a bit of a worry, but explosive footwork, vision. And when you watch the tape, there's rarely a negative play in there as well. You know, most of them are positive yardage. And as you say, loads of really cool moves. His little jump cut move that he does, will that work in the NFL? Because if it doesn't, I think he might struggle. And there's only really one real solid year of tape to go, look at this guy, look how good he is. I know he was good in 2024, but it's a smaller sample size. And sometimes that worries me. I like to see a bit more of a running back through college to say it's definitely going to work. But he did touch the ball 300 times in 12 games. So there is proof that he can be a workhorse. You know, for the size he is, the proof is that he can do it. And it was in the Big Ten. So, you know, there's a lot of big guys, big, good defenses in that conference. So it can work. I just have that sort of niggling bit in the back of my head where I'm like, is he big enough? Does his play style work at the next level? Because it definitely works in college.
I think that you need to see him probably put on about 8 to 10 pounds. Is probably what you're going to need. And then if you do that, you are looking at a kind of Ray Davis type body type, and you are looking. The other one actually is Tajay Spears. Again, another one. If you put say like 10 pounds on him, then I think you've kind of got that as well. It has the. I don't think it's not, to me. I don't think he's a starter. Again, I think he's probably. You think of like how Ray Davis is. You think of how Tajay Spears is. It's very much a committee. But then, like you say, most NFL teams now, it is a committee. Whatever you're doing. So I think that that's just how it's going to be with him. But he's got a lot of promising attributes about him where I think that he's got a good shot of doing something if someone can sort of like build him up a little bit.
Yeah, I see his play style maybe a bit more of a Jamal Williams, but Jamal Williams was taller and a lot heavier, and that's my concern, that he plays like that, but he is nowhere near the size. So that's my kind of comparison, but a lot smaller. Up next at number 5, Adam, we have got Jadarian Price from Notre Dame, 22 years old, 5'11", 203 pounds, 674 yards, 11 touchdowns, 87 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. He predominantly has played backup to a guy that we may talk about in a little bit. But a really interesting guy. I think he's flying up people's boards. I think a lot of people have got him as the number 2 guy behind Love. I'm just not quite sure. I'll go into my concerns with him, but I'll let you go first, Adam.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff about Price that I quite liked, actually. And it's one of them things where it's like, I remember a few years back with the Texas running backs, and you ended up with like, you had one guy who was just taking all the snaps, and there was another guy who was just sitting behind, and you just went, do you know what? Actually, he's pretty good. He's just not getting involved enough.
Roschon Johnson, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically. And this kind of feels a little bit similar in not only the fact of the circumstance that he's been in, but also just the sort of type of player that he is. He's a very strong player. He looks bigger than what he is, actually. When you look at him on the tape, he looks very big. Really like him in pass protection. Think he's got great technique for that, and I think that will give him a really good leg up with the NFL to get him out there. I think his vision is good. His footwork is solid. He's come from a multi-sports background, so he was a sprinter in high school, and I think that you can see that with the sort of like the speed that he can create, despite the fact that, you know, he is a solid size, but he can create some good speed. His yards after the catch was pretty good. I had a look at his PFF numbers from college, and that was decent. That was quite high.
How do you
Yeah,
get
I
those
think.
yards after the catch were good? He only had 15 catches in his whole.
Yeah, he didn't have many, but I mean the fact that he's
He never
involved
threw
in
it
any,
before.
the fact that he's involved in any of it. Sometimes when
How
you
many
think
times?
of who his main guy is
So if he
ahead
had
of him.
15 catches in the whole of his career, how many catches did he actually have last year?
I don't know how many he had last year, but yeah, I mean it was some. I mean the ones that he had, I thought at least he showed a little bit. I mean I kind of took the numbers from his last 2 years, so
he had 6 catches last year.
yeah, but what? So yeah, so but the point is like he can do it. It's something that's there, and it's
I've just got it down as a negative. I've got it down as a negative that he was never
yeah.
used in this game and hasn't done it.
Well, I've got as a negative. I've got not done enough in the receiving game.
Yeah,
I mean that is an obvious thing. It's just that what from the little that we have seen, it's looked all right. So it's like that's kind of how you kind of have to look at it. But yeah, I mean he hasn't done enough in the receiving game. Sometimes he does show a bit of hesitancy. I noticed that, and that's something that he needs to stop that, and he needs to be more aggressive in his thought process, I think. And then one of the other big things is he does fumble the ball too much. It's like that's a really big issue, and so that is a concern. But yeah, there's a lot of really good positive things about this guy. I think he's a day 2 pick.
really?
Yeah, I think someone will go for him and he'll be a day 2 pick. I think he'll be towards the end of day 2. But I think someone will take a punt on him because he does have a lot of good positive things about him. Something like, I mean, it's difficult to say that not doing enough in the receiving game is a criticism because he hasn't been asked to do it. So it's kind of like one of them things where it's tough to sort of do that. The hesitancy, I think that can be sorted out. The fumbles, that's the concern, and that's the thing where they need to sort of kind of get that sort of figured out and get his hand work a little bit better. But again, through time, that can help. I don't think there's too many negatives. I just think that it's someone that I think a team is going to be up for giving him a go and taking him in probably at the back of day 3, back of the 3rd round even.
My worrying concern with him, which is why I've got him a little bit further down than most, is that he was used in relief of Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
So when he came onto the field, that's when most defenses would take a rest from trying to mark Love. And obviously Notre Dame's O-line is very, very good. And I saw him just running through very large open holes and getting the yardage. And I just worry that because he was coming in and playing against the tired guys taking a break, that his tape is elevated and higher and better than what it actually would be if he was the main starter on another team that wasn't Notre Dame. So if he was the RB1 on someone else, would we be seeing the same? We saw a lot of this with Caleb Johnson, didn't we? Running through open gaps and just flying, and it's not translated to the NFL. And I do worry that with Price, because I do think he's a physical guy, and I do think I don't think he's got particularly like amazing speed, but he's a good physical runner, and I saw him running for a lot of big open holes. And I'm just worried that the players that he was facing were taking a rest, and I worry that that's elevating it. He's got the early fumble issues, and I think he's probably maybe an early down back guy when it goes to the NFL, which is not what he was used for technically at Notre Dame. So these are my concerns with him and why I haven't got him as high.
The only thing I'd say about pretty much all of that is that that's very difficult to be able to defend.
Mm-hmm.
You can't defend him for that because I've got no idea how knackered the opposition were of what Jeremiah Love had done to them. I can come out and say that Jeremiah Love is an absolute beast of a running back, and so in theory they are going to be more knackered because they're busy defending him, but you don't really know, kind of thing. It's a fair thing to come out and say, but it's just something where you don't know. Like, I mean, you might be right.
It's just, I feel like we're into a point of the list here where all of these running backs that we're going to go through now, apart from maybe the top two, are all very, very similar in terms of are we sure they're definitely going to make it in the NFL? And I think when we're nitpicking and pulling at them, I've just put that as a reason to put him lower than the next.
Yeah. So like I say, I think it's a fair point, and it's something that it's fine coming out with, but it's a very difficult thing to be able to come out and know for certain whether or not that's the case. That's the only problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's, like I said, I think there's a path for him. I think he can get there. I've just got some concerns.
I do worry that he could end up being Roschon Johnson though.
Yeah, again, another.
Yeah, I think that
hasn't quite lived up to the hype. In at number 4 is the first of the Penn State guys. It's Kaytron Allen, Penn State, 23 years old, 5'11", 216 pounds, 1,303 yards, 15 touchdowns, 68 receiving yards, no touchdowns in that game. Former 4-star recruit, used to play basketball. He was first team All Big Ten in 2024. Nick Singleton has got injured. Kaytron Allen over the last 2 years, I feel, has been really showed up, and Penn State's been quite a run first team for the last few years. It's been all about Allen and Singleton, and I feel like he has been productive over the last couple of years and showcased that he can be an NFL running back and take on a team. Adam, what's your thoughts on him?
I think he's a big guy who's definitely got power, and I think he actually plays bigger than what he is as well. I think he's definitely got that about him. I really like his footwork. I think his balance is good. He's the type of running back who knows when to be a bruiser and when not to be, which is something that I think is quite a nice thing to have. He's got really good vision, can navigate traffic very well. I know we're only talking about him, but the whole Allen Singleton thing kind of reminds me a little bit of the Judkins Henderson thing, where I feel like this guy is the Quinshon Judkins of the team, and I think he just has that really good ability, certainly against going for the gaps, going against running schemes. He isn't just a north-south runner. He can go. He does have lateral speed as well. So yeah, I think he's got a lot of good things going about him. I think he lacks a bit of getaway speed. He doesn't have that about him. That's not necessarily his game. And there's not really been a great deal in the receiving game. But I feel like that's just not the way that they've played him. He kind of reminds me of David Montgomery a little bit. He's kind of got that, and it feels like, I know obviously Montgomery's not at the Lions anymore, and I've already used the Judkins Henderson thing, but it does kind of feel like he is the David Montgomery type player in that sort of what was Montgomery and Gibbs. So yeah, I think he's got a lot of positives. I think I'm not sure how far he'll go. I think he's probably a very early day 3 guy, is what I think he's probably going to end up being. I don't think he's necessarily a day 2 guy. But yeah, he's got some positives about him. I think he'll probably do well. And he, like I say, comes across as that. I think a lot of people are going to think of him as a bruiser, but he's actually got a little bit more to him than just that.
Yeah, he's very productive. And you know, he's really good at force missed tackles. That's the tick for me for going into the NFL. His footwork is really good. Start-stop is really good. His change of pace is good. He shows really good patience. And he has an NFL frame for me. And I'm just ticking NFL boxes here. This is what I mean. You've got to try and take away from college football to NFL football. And I just think this guy suits it a little bit better than some of the others we've gone through. I do really like your analogies there. I think we saw it a few years back in Georgia, didn't we? When they had James Cook and Zamir White. White was the RB1 and James Cook was the RB2. And then if you look at what they've done in the NFL, obviously James Cook's at the Bills. And Zamir White, I just don't think he's had a good shot, really. But yeah, very similar style back to Zamir White. And that's where you've got that. So, yeah, I think he's got the legitimate chance to be that Montgomery on a team, which I think is what people are looking for in the NFL now. They're looking for that complementary 1-2 punch with your backs, and he is one of them. And I think that's why I've got him higher. I think there's definitely a team wanting that, and we'll go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to find that this is, like you say, and we said at the beginning of the show, it's very much like teams want the committee now. They want the two guys. I think they've seen how it works with the likes of when Montgomery and Gibbs were working together at the Lions. And I think a lot of people, it's a copycat league, isn't it? They see that and they want to do that. And so I think you're going to find that more and more. And this guy is, the fact that he's already been in that kind of system already is only going to be a positive as well. So yeah, I think he's got a really good shot. I do think he's day 3. I don't think he'll go earlier than that. But yeah, I think he's got a really good chance of being able to be part of a decent committee at the NFL level.
Well, in at number 3, we have got his partner in crime. That is Nick Singleton, obviously Penn State, 22 years old, 6 foot, 219 pounds, 559 yards, 13 touchdowns, 219 yards, 1 touchdown in the receiving game. Former 5-star recruit, former track and field guy, also did shot put as well as 100 meters and 200 meters and the relay. So, super fast guy. The tape is fantastic. But that foot injury that he got in Mobile, I think is just going to plummet him in terms of draft capital. But this list for me is the best guys going into the NFL. So if he misses a bit of time in his first year, I think he's got more chance of being an NFL back for his career than the others. So yes, he may drop in the draft a little bit, but I think in terms of NFL going forward, I think I'm really high on him. I've liked him for the whole time he's been at Penn State. The guy's stuck in 0 fumbles and 45 rushing touchdowns in college. He's a legit guy. Adam, what's your feeling on Nick Singleton?
Yeah, he has some amazing traits. He really does. And then he has some things which are just a little bit like, I don't quite know what you're doing there. That's a bit odd. I think he's great size, great strength, really good in the receiving game. He's had 65 passes in the last 2 years that he's been in college. I think he's solid at pass protection, which I think is going to really help him. Just an all-round explosive, natural athlete, actually, who I think, it's a shame about the injuries that have come along and just sort of like you say, I think it probably will push him down a bit and actually might end up knocking him to around the same as Kaytron Allen and like that early day 3 where I feel like he could have been a day 2 pick, just the way that he has been playing. He does not make people miss, which is a weird thing. He just likes to find people when he doesn't need to. That's an issue with him, and I don't quite know why he does it. He's just not very elusive. He just wants to go into the guy. I find that his cuts and are a little stiff. They're not quite as good as some of the other guys. I mean, he's a big guy, so you got to give him a little bit of leeway because of that. He's not just a sort of like a Jamari Taylor. I mean, you're talking about a good 20 pounds, probably more than some of these other guys. Home run threat, I'm not sure is a particular big thing of his. I think I'm not 100% sure. He's got speed, but I don't think he's got top speed. But yeah, he's, I mean, a lot of that stuff, it's kind of just, the biggest problem with him is just the fact that he seems really keen to run into defenders, and when he doesn't need to. That's his biggest issue. But apart from that, I think he's got a lot of really good positive attributes that I think a lot of teams are going to love. And I think someone's probably going to get a bit of a bargain for him, actually, because I think he will go later, like you said. I think he will be a day 3 guy. And, in kind of in a way like where the Giants kind of got scatterboo in round 4, I think that's what you're going to be seeing with this guy, and they're going to come out and go, I can't believe we got this guy in day 3.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people saying he's not lived up to the hype. He's not lived up to the hype. He's not progressed. But I think that's the same with everybody who's been on Penn State. And I think you've got to look at the coaching staff and things like that of why have they got all these 5-star recruits that have just never kicked on to the next level? And I think they all have the ability to be unlocked. And he's one of them. He reminds me a lot of Joe Mixon. I think he can be a Joe Mixon in the NFL, and I think at the Bengals and at the Texans, he had a lot of success. So I think that that type of style does work and can be the RB1 of a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the comparison I had for him was Rachaad White, but yeah, I mean Joe Mixon, I think makes sense. But then, this guy's got injury problems already, isn't he? So it's the last thing that you want.
It's a foot injury as well. Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I shouldn't have put it out there. In at number 2 is Jonah Coleman. I think this is where we're getting to a point for me where there's a separation in the guys. Jonah Coleman, 22 years old, 5'8", 220 pounds, 758 yards, 15 touchdowns, 354 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Adam, are you as high on this guy as I am, or do you think I've missed the mark on him as well?
No, I think this one's an early day 2. I have to say, I think he's a second round pick, and he's got a lot of good things going for him. Love the low center of gravity, the frame, the weight is great. Really strong guy, doesn't fumble at all. Really good hand strength with the ball. I think he's a really good pass catcher as well, from what I've seen. I think he does that really nicely. Contact balance is good. He keeps his legs driving forward. Yards after the contact has been really good in the passing game. He's got that burst in sort of like short yardage where he can be that sort of bruiser, thumper type guy, but he also has the ability to get out and do other stuff. He's had, 34 career rushing touchdowns he's had. I mean, I think he's got loads and loads of good things going about him. And I think that when you look at this running back class as a whole, like you say, it does feel like there's a big jump up here now, and that Jonah Coleman is definitely one to look at and have. And yeah, I think he's a second round guy. Only a couple of weaknesses. I feel like he doesn't have the top end speed. I just feel like that's not there with him. I think it's good, but I don't think it's the real sort of like top end. Pass protection needs to improve, but then that's pretty much the same with most of these guys. And he had a left knee injury, didn't he? Which obviously
that he played through.
Well, that's not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, though. I know he played through it, but
no. But I think that's one for me where I'm saying I think there's a slight drop in productivity from 2024 because he played through a knee injury and missed a game due to a knee injury. Because the 2024 tape is absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah.
And his last year at Arizona was really, really good. The tape is good there. So you've got multiple years of great tape. You were talking about his build. I put him down as a bowling ball build. He's sort of like low center of gravity, big guy, runs with power. He's only had one drop ever in the passing game, so that's another good thing. And I think he profiles as sort of like people looking at him that he'd be a short yardage, run into the pile guy, but he's not that at all. No. If you can get the ball to him on the outside, on the edges, he's really, really explosive. And I think that's going to confuse a lot of people going into the NFL. And I thought, you said he hasn't got that top end speed, but what I have seen from him is he can get away from people. I've seen him with his fast pace, he can get away from people. So yeah, I think if you use him in the right way and you get him on those edges and you use him in the passing game, he could be a really, really big threat. And I think he's a day 2 guy as well. I think he's, the next guy out of the running back class easily for me.
Yeah, I think when I say top end speed, I think his body kind of lets him down for top end speed, just purely because of what he is. He is only 5'9", so he doesn't have that long stride. He is 230 pounds, so there is a lot of weight there. So it is like that's the reason that he doesn't make that top end speed compared to the others. I just quickly, I had him. I mean, again, I had him as David Montgomery as a potential one, but one that I did think of, like just now, and thinking about it because of more David Montgomery's not, he's a bit taller and not quite as big. I think Blake Corum is a good shout for him as well.
Similar,
I think
similar to
yeah,
Blake Corum, yeah.
I think
I saw a little bit of Devonta Freeman in him as well. A bit
yeah,
of ball player, but I saw that style of player. He was a similar size and height as him. So yeah, that similar low to the ground style guy. I think Ashton Genty, I know not the same, but that's the same sort of style of play, isn't it? That bowling ball type of guy. So yeah, I think there's big upside with Coleman, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on him a little bit because I think they're looking at the drop in his productivity in last year and looking at the likes of Jadarian Price and people like that and pushing him above him, which I think is the wrong move. I think this is the guy to go to after Love. No, guess who's at number one here? No surprises here. We have stuck with Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame, 20 years old, still only 20 years old, 6 foot, 212 pounds. Last year, 1,372 yards, 18 touchdowns, 280 yards in receiving, and 3 touchdowns. He's a former Doak Walker Award winner. And, I bring that up every single time. I bring it up for 3 years. The winners of that tend to make it in the NFL. If they win that award, if you look at the previous winners that have won that award, they've all made it quite successfully and high end in the NFL. And he's a former winner of that. I'll let you take it away with why we should love him.
Because he has everything you need. That is why you should love him. There's very, very few issues here. I think he's got a multi-sports background. Home run speed is ridiculous. That's not a problem at all for him. Really good contact balance. Doesn't have any problems at all with that. His hands are great. Soft hands that do really well. Doesn't have a problem when it comes to fumbling at all. I think he does that nicely. I think he has that vision about him where he's like he can be a patient runner. He can wait for the gaps to emerge, and he does that incredibly well. I think he's quite creative. His IQ is pretty high, and he sees different things that will get him through the gaps. He's got power, more power, and actually, he's not like some of these other guys we've spoken about are bigger than him, but he does have power despite that he's around a slightly smaller weight than some of them. And actually, pass protection is something that I always go on about because I think it just gets you there from day one. Like it means that teams take him. He actually, if you look at his 25 tape, his pass protection got quite a lot better, and he actually wasn't too bad. And he's willing to take on the hits and do well with that. So, the technique is still a work in progress, but overall, it's improved quite a lot. And I think that a lot of teams obviously would love to have a guy like this. Only real concerns are a kind of real sort of nitpicking. He's like I said, he is a bit smaller than say like some of these other guys, and so that but even then, around his weight, you would think that he'd probably be okay to deal with it. The NFL in general. That's about it, really. There just isn't really a lot else. It's like he's got everything that you'd want. We're recording this on the day that free agency has started. So technically, as we're recording it now, it's opening in about 15 minutes. It will be really interesting to see what some of these teams do, whether they go for running backs, as to where this guy ends up going, because I think the Chiefs at 9 is an obvious one.
The Chiefs have already got Walker, I think.
Have they? Has that happened since we've been recording this? Okay, forget that. So not the Chiefs. The Commanders at 7 is one that a lot of people have mentioned. And then there was The Saints, yeah, and then there was one other really high. Who was it? Was it 3 or 4?
Tennessee. People have said
Tennessee
might go after him, and people have said the Giants might go after him.
Right. Yes, because obviously the Giants were talking about Walker, weren't they? So, so yeah, I think it'd be really. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, the Chiefs won't go for him now, but I think this guy is definitely a top 10, and could quite easily become a top 5 pick based on what happens in free agency.
Yeah, I think when you've got all the tape, the productivity, and you're using words like home run ability, size, speed, strength, only fumbled once in this whole entire time at college. I think, he has the ability as a high-end comp, as a high-end comp, if he can get there, of like a Bijan Robinson, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that Bijan Robinson is probably about right, given his size as well. I think that he definitely has that about him and has the potential to do that. I'm trying to think of others. I mean, Travion Henderson kind of feels like that given his size that you could argue that, but I feel like that Henderson maybe not quite as much. But yeah, I think Bijan is kind of the obvious comp to go for on this one.
Well, that's our top 10 running backs, Adam. We will be back very soon with wide receivers following, so keep your eye out for that. And as always, keep it with the franchise tag, and see you again very soon.